are back. And that was Carmen by the Witch's Invitation. And I froze, so give me a minute. Alright, we are back.
Alright, well, I thought that was appropriate for the topic we're talking about. Since every Halloween it just seems to be getting worse and worse, and it's just, people are doing crazy things, these movies coming out, promoting witchcraft and Satanism and all that lovely stuff that goes on.
The most dangerous movie out that's coming soon is a movie called Antichrist. And in this movie, it's supposed to be a husband and wife. Husband's supposed to be a psychiatrist, and the wife has some kind of movie issues. Paranormal Activity is another movie that promotes the occult. But they're making this movie unrated, so your 10-year-old kid could go. And based on the information I get from the Christian media, and I'd hate to know how they know this, the movie's pretty much like an X-rated sadomasochism film. And we just keep getting promoted in directions that are getting darker and darker and darker. And it is a dangerous time that we are in. We want you to be informed of the truth, for the truth will set you free. And tonight we want to set you free on the truth about Halloween. We're going to get into the history of Halloween, and then we're going to go in from there. There's a lot to cover. Hopefully we can get it covered in the next 40 minutes. Okay.
A lot of people, where did Halloween start? And a lot of people don't know where it started, and it actually started with the Celtics, or the Druids, and it was Samhain. At the end of summer, November 1st, they believed Samhain was a time when the division between the two worlds became very thin, when hostile supernatural forces were active and ghosts and spirits were free to wander as they wished. And I found a documentary by the History Channel, and we're going to play quite a few clips from that documentary talking about Halloween and its history and how it has come to be what it is today. So we're going to play the first clip, and it talks about the very beginning of Halloween and where it started from.
As winter approached, the Celts asked their priests, known as Druids, to pray for them. And the most important night of prayers occurred late in their fall, the last day of the harvest, and the first day of the dark of winter. On that night, the Celts believed that the boundary between the world of the living and the spirit world was unusually thin, so thin that the souls of the dead could roam freely back and forth. That night was enormously important to the Celts. They called it Samhain, Gaelic for November.
Samhain represented the transition from the summer to the winter. And these transitional times, the times between the light and the dark, dusk and dawn, were very magical times to the Celts. Weird things could happen at these times that don't happen at other times.
On Samhain night only, the Celts believed those who had died in the past year walked the earth once more. But not every visiting ghost was friendly, so the Celts devised ways to appease these spirits.
It comes from this very archaic sense that the dead return. You have to placate them, you have to do something with them, or they might return and stay, they might trouble you and, haunt you in various ways.
To appease these spirits, the Celts would parade out to the edge of their villages with offerings, trying to coax the evil forces away from their homes. They would leave food and sweets outside as gifts for the dead, a tradition that would eventually become trick-or-treating.
The dead come back to life at Halloween, and that's why there's a great fear of the dead around Halloween. And many of the devices and practices and customs of Halloween in Europe were attempts to keep the dead in their graves.
The Celts believed that the gods controlled the sun, and the shortening days were a sign of their awesome power, so they built bonfires to honor those gods and to pray for the return of the sun. To thank the earth for giving up her bounty at harvest time, the Celts offered the gods blood sacrifices. Cows, horses, and other animals were thrown onto huge bonfires.
The purpose of sacrifice is that something has to be offered back. If the earth had given up her riches in every way, then the early Celts would have considered it only polite to offer back some of their own life essence to the earth.
So, the beginning of Halloween, the history of Halloween, it was very evil. It was all pagan. They gave animal sacrifices to the dead and or to these evil spirits that they were afraid of. They give them, treats or food to keep them away. So it is it's a little scary that we're dressing. I didn't know when I was a child. I had no idea what the history of it was. I dressed up in costumes and went and got candy. That's all I thought. So, to know that that's what they did, when they started all this, we're thousands of years later, hundreds of years later, we're, publicizing. We're not telling the truth about it. Basically, I feel like we're hiding it. And that's why we're wanting to get out there. And but now, how did we get into like bobbing for apples and other things? Well, that actually came from the Romans, and the Romans had their own version of Halloween that they celebrated. So we're going to play this clip real quick, and then we'll take a break, and we'll be back.
On the other side of Europe, at around the same time, ancient Romans were celebrating a night of mystical revelry that also played a big role in shaping modern Halloween. The night was called Pomona. The Romans worshipped Pomona, the goddess of gardens and fruits, in a festival that took place around November 1st. To thank Pomona for a bountiful harvest, Romans laid out apples and nuts in tribute. Apple bobbing on Halloween today, in fact, comes from this Pomona tradition. In 50 BC, the Romans conquered much of northern Europe, spreading Pomona to the land of Samhain. These two traditions began to merge, the traditions of honoring the dead and the harvest. But just as the trend shaping early Halloween began to form, a new force bitterly opposed to all things pagan was taking root all across Europe: Christianity. Samhain would soon find itself in the center of a raging moral battleground: pagan versus Christian.
We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.